Birdland Tonight is your place for Orioles post-game coverage for fans by fans. All of the hosts on Birdland Tonight are Oriole fans that are either writing blogs or doing podcasts about Orioles. Head on over to birdlandtonight.com to learn more about the hosts and other shows and websites that they're a part of. And head on over to Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch and subscribe, follow, or like, whatever the appropriate thing is, to Birdland Sports. Finally, share, retweet, and tell your friends about Birdland Tonight so that we're all joined into the conversation after every Orioles game this year. We'll see you guys in just a couple minutes. Head on over to the comment sections on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube to start interacting now. We'll see you soon. Did you know Birdland Tonight is also a podcast? Head on over to your favorite podcast app and subscribe to Birdland Tonight to get the audio of this show every morning ready for your commute. Thanks for joining us. We will get started in just 1 minute. Make sure that you have subscribed to us on your favorite social media. Look up Birdland Sports on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Like, follow, retweet, share. See you in a moment. All right, 3 hours and 42 minutes. That's the official length of tonight's Oriole game. Welcome to Birdland Tonight. I'm Josh Soroka. Joining me is Andrew Stecca. Andrew, this was a long game.
It was long. I can understand anyone who is not watching live tonight and who is instead catching us on the podcast tomorrow morning, because that was a lengthy one. And I'm out here on the West Coast, and it's already 8 o'clock for me. Even it's still late, so I can totally empathize with that. But yeah, we were sitting here, we were chatting a little bit during the game in our group chat, and just kind of slogging through this one for lack of a better term.
It was that type of game. And it was the type of game where it got bad fast, as Matt Harvey gave up 6 runs in less than 2 innings. And it was ugly. But on the positive side, the Orioles bats kept getting hits. So you kept thinking, well, maybe they're stringing something together. And they kept leading you on. And never enough, never to catch up. And every time they would get something going, the next pitcher would give up another home run. 5 home runs by the Rays, and I don't think any of them were solo shots tonight.
I don't believe they were, no. And even into that 9th inning, you mentioned the Orioles bats. The Orioles were able to plate 2 more in the 9th inning, even entering that inning down 13-4 to make it a 13-6 final score. And it's just like, all right, guys, if you're going to do something, do it. But at that point, it was it was pretty much all she wrote. But that is the one positive, you're right, to take from this, is that they didn't just roll over and die offensively. They did keep things going a little bit with the bats, and nobody had an outstanding night at the plate, but they were able to string a few things together and score 6 runs. So if you want to try to pull any morsel of goodness out of this game, that would be it.
I've got 2 positives, and the one is that 6 runs with no home runs. That hasn't been the Orioles' way. That's what we've all been craving for, is moving guys along the base paths. Now they got 6 out of that. They had opportunities to get like 20 runs with guys on base paths. It seemed like there was always a guy on second base for the Orioles tonight. But they did get 6 in there. So that's a little positive.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, none of them coming via the home run, to which the Rays hit 5, 2 of them coming off the bat of Mike Zunino. So it is, like you said, it is something to take from this game. I don't know what else you can pull out of it. I guess. I guess we can. Another one. Okay, go ahead.
And it's not that John Means starts tomorrow, because we'll finish the show with that positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Stevie Wilkinson.
That's exactly where I was going.
Has been the darkest of holes for this team. It has been nothing. And I am not a Stevie Wilkerson fan. I know that he is another placeholder. Some people don't believe that. I believe he is a placeholder. He's just another guy. But you know what? I was done with Urias. I was done with Ruiz. Wilkerson came in and went 2 for 4. I'll take that from second base. No problem.
Yeah, two for 4 with an RBI, a double, 2 runs scored. And I mean, you can't ask for much more for a guy who hadn't played in the majors since 2019, who comes back. And, for those who didn't see kind of the transactions over the last few days, as you mentioned, Urias goes down to AAA, and Rio Ruiz today, to bring Wilkerson up, was DFA'd. And I think that's the interesting part of this as well, is that this team has, for all intents and purposes, I guess, given up on Rio Ruiz. There's still obviously a possibility that he stays in the organization. But when you DFA someone, you always risk losing them. And I think that, to your point about Stevie Wilkerson, he's just a guy in the same way that those other 2 guys are just guys.
Stevie Wilkerson, as far as we know, could be DFA'd in 2 weeks.
Right.
He's in the exact same position.
Exact same position. And that's, but I think it's important to note that that's what we have at the second base position right now for the Orioles. I know there's been a lot of talk about Jahmai Jones, but he obviously got hurt. I believe went on the 7-day DL, or the IL. I believe they have a 7-day IL in the minors, right? So, we'll see what comes of that in the next few months. Maybe he's a guy that, they perhaps want to try there. I think it's also interesting to note the one thing, and we'll get to talking about this game a little bit more specifically, but the other thing that's interesting to note, right? Okay, fair enough. But the other thing that's interesting to note is that Richie Martin, a guy who's kind of a second base shortstop type, was playing center field tonight in Norfolk, and went into the wall attempting to catch a ball that turned into an inside the park home run, because when he went into the wall, he injured his left wrist pretty poorly and couldn't even manage to get the ball back into play. This comes after this is a guy who fractured his right wrist in 2020 and broke the hamate bone in his left hand earlier this year in January. So another injury to the left hand wrist area for him.
Yeah.
More tests coming in the next 24 hours, but we'll see. So another option for a guy that, like I said, he's playing center field tonight. I'm not sure how much he's been doing that.
No, this is his first time in center field.
Yeah, but he's another middle infield option.
Right, and they basically put him in center field because they wanted Urias in the lineup. So they wanted Urias at second base. So they haven't fully given up on him,
Right.
By sending him in Norfolk and forcing him into the lineup. That they've been fine with Bannon and Jemiah Jones and Richie Martin to not
Well,
need.
and when you say they haven't fully given up on him, I think it's important to note because fans are going to hear that and think, is Ramon Urias a guy that could be? No, we're still saying he's just a guy. I think they haven't given up on him in the sense that he can still be just a guy down the road for them to continue to placehold until they find a real guy.
When I say they don't give up on him, it means in 2 weeks when he's hot and Wilkerson's struggling, they swap positions again.
Exactly. And there are some guys, we talk about guys, infield guys at the lower levels, at Bowie or perhaps Delmarva or Aberdeen, that are perhaps guys, but they're so much further away. And
maybe
the Wilkerson, maybe next year, but that's still, for the immediate future, Wilkerson is the guy right now. And we saw Valleca come in the game late and pick up a pinch hit RBI, or I guess it was a pinch hit RBI. He had come in as a defensive sub, but that's another guy, that's another just a guy that kind of sticks on this roster for now. He came in and got an RBI single in the 9th. And, there's a lot of just a guys on this team. And the second base / middle infield ish position is one that is going to continue to rotate. And Rio Ruiz is just the latest victim with Wilkerson coming up. So
I got another positive. Ryan Mckenna coming in and having a great at-bat to pull a walk out of it.
He did, yeah, and ended up coming around to score in that 9th inning, like you said. What have you thought about Mckenna? I think he's an interesting in the standpoint of, we're talking about all these guys that are just placeholder guys. I tend to think that Ryan Mckenna is also just a guy, but maybe he's just a guy that his ceiling is like 4th outfielder bench type, but that's still a guy that you would need on a roster, right?
Yeah, and that's what I think. I think Mckenna right now is a bench guy. I'm really interested in what their future plans are for Mckenna, because if their plan was for him to be a real outfielder, he would get way more progress and playing time and everything in Norfolk than he's getting up here.
Sure.
But they like his speed. They like him coming in as that late inning guy. And I like that. I really like him coming off the bench.
Well, and you would think with Anthony Santander, on his rehab assignment and on his way back to the major league club, you would think Mckenna would be, able to get those reps down, once Santander comes back.
Yes, yeah, that he's going to be the one they clear for Santander. Yes.
Yeah, you would think so.
And that'll be on Friday, right? Friday's the Nats series.
I believe so, yeah. Starts Friday.
Yes. Yep, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's when Santander is supposed to be back.
What's our next step here with Matt Harvey? I know he won 3 straight decisions back toward the end of April and into the 1st of May. One at Miami, at home against the Yankees, and then at Oakland. I think people got a little excited about how he was pitching during that 3-game stretch, and that's fair. I think one of those starts was a really good start, and that was the one at home against the Yankees. He went 6 innings, gave up just the 1 run, 3 hits, 3 walks, 5 Ks. I think that's the one start from that stretch that really stood out to me. Yeah. It's still 6 base runners, but in 6 innings, that's you can deal with that. I tend to think this is the Matt Harvey that we all kind of would have expected, right? That we saw tonight.
Maybe, but I'm not sure yet, because the long ball hurt Matt Harvey so much tonight. I mean, he gave up 6 runs basically on 2 long balls. And we've seen him use that veteran presence to get out of so many situations with men on base, and that just didn't work for him today. So I'm wondering, there's difference. I'm not looking for Matt Harvey to be this guy that blow past it. I'm looking for him to be the guy to outsmart the guy at the plate. So I haven't given up yet. I kind of discounted or gave excuses for his outing in New York of there had to be so many emotions into that game.
Sure.
And then this, I'm excusing him because it was 2 home runs. So I'm not quite there, but I also don't have many other options except for him to pitch well enough to trade.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point. He had only given up 3 home runs in his previous 8 starts to start the season, and then gives up 2 tonight. So there's something to that, perhaps. But I I just don't see what team is giving anything up for Matt Harvey. And I don't see how he's building any kind of or going to have the time even to build any kind of, trade equity in himself. Tonight it was just hard hit balls, really. It wasn't even a lack of control or anything. He just didn't have,
What about
anything on the mound.
Yeah. I wonder if at some point they'll consider moving him to the pen. So that because we haven't seen him get through 5 innings, or we've seen him get through 5 once, I believe. But
he got through 5. He got through 5 a handful. He got through 5 each one of those. Well, he got through 5 in each one of those 3 wins that he had. He got through 5, 6, and 5 2/3. He also got through 5 in his second start against Boston, but gave up 4 runs and a loss in that game. But this was the shortest start of his career, I believe I saw. 1 2/3 innings,
right.
Gives up the 6 runs. And he has not, his last 3 starts have just been awful. I mean, four innings against the Red Sox, 4 runs, but all of them unearned.
Right.
And then you mentioned the last start last week against the Mets, where he gives up 7 runs in 4 1/3. I guess if you're going to move him to the bullpen, that's going to require, I think you're able to get you're already hiding, 1 Rule 5 guy. You're really hiding 2. One of them is hurt. You're already hiding 1 Rule 5 guy in the bullpen. Do you really want to string things out with Matt Harvey? And I'm not saying that they're going to cut ties with him anytime soon, because they don't. It's not like they have a lot of other options for their rotation right now.
And that's the thing is, look at the past 3 games. Yeah, Matt Harvey struggled today, but 2 long balls. Yesterday we had Plutko start the game. No need for him to ever start the game. Saturday, Lopez looked horrible. So
yeah, there aren't options. But if you move him to the bullpen, are you really just stringing things out and taking up a spot in that bullpen for someone who you might actually want to look at in certain spots? It would be my thing.
Yeah, the only reason to move him to the bullpen would be if he is some type of specialist in the pen that you can count on to get you out of an inning, because that's the type of guy that then might be serviceable in a trade for, again, not much, but something, and that's all you're looking for. So no, you give him another out, and you probably give him the rest of the month. Well, I guess that's just probably 1 more outing, maybe 2 more outings.
Yeah.
And then you reevaluate again in June, because as the weather warms up, if that ball's flying out, then if he's giving them up, you have to reevaluate that.
You mentioned moving into the bullpen, and I mentioned, you're already hiding a Rule 5 guy in there.
Right.
I want to talk for a minute about Tyler Wells tonight, because despite coming in and giving up, he gave up a triple and a home run to Wendell and Zunino back to back in the 3rd. Other than that, and I know that's like saying other than the play, Mrs. Lincoln, or other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? But other than that, he looked really good. He had 6 strikeouts in 2 1/3 innings. I mean, he was blowing it by guys and struck out the side in the 4th inning, came back, struck out the final 2 in that 3rd, or struck out 2 in that 3rd, came back, struck out the side in the 4th. He was really good in relief, despite giving up the first of Zunino's 2 home runs, right?
And that's why I'm having a really hard time evaluating this game, because they scored 12 runs, but it 13. Was on 13 runs, but 12 of them were on home runs.
Right.
So, and yet they also struck out 14 times. That
was interesting.
They struck it out 14 times and still scored that many runs. That's interesting. And then you mentioned Wells, he had 6 of them, which is outstanding and really exciting for a Rule 5 guy. But again, I'm having trouble evaluating what I watched today. Part of it is it was so long ago when the game started, I got to remember it all. The other part is it was just a weird game.
It was. I mean, it felt like it was out of hand early. I mean, the Orioles trailed 8-0 in this game, and it ends up being 13-6 final. But it never really felt completely out of hand, but it also never really felt like the Orioles had any chance to come back. And I thought that, the stretch there where they were able to cut it, I believe they cut it to 8-4 at one point, and you were like, okay, well, at least they're making this respectable. But from there, it was, like you said earlier, the bullpen, every time the bullpen, got a few runs for them, they couldn't shut the door in the end.
Right. Like, and it started with the third inning where they started the inning, they got 2 on and no outs. Then they got another hit and they got a run in, still had 2 on and no outs. Mm-hmm. And then it's out, out, out. And they couldn't get a second run. So all of that in, and they got 1 run, even though they had 2 men on, no outs immediately. Then we go to the 4th inning, which is where they got things going, and that's where they scored 3 runs. Same thing, they got the bases loaded, got things rotating around, and then fell apart. Couldn't move, couldn't build on any momentum. So yeah, once you saw that 8-4, and you saw 2 innings of the Orioles getting hits, but not being able to build the momentum to get the runs in, then yeah, 8-4, I was like, oh well, the Orioles have a shot, and then we give up a 2-run home run immediately after that, and now suddenly it's 10-4.
Well, and that's going to be something that this is not just a short-term problem for Orioles pitching. It's a long-term problem. You can point to, okay, they only gave up runs on home runs, but when you're playing in a ballpark like Camden Yards, there's always going to be an issue. Matt Harvey has now given up 5 home runs on the season. They've all come at Camden Yards. He has yet to give up a home run on the road. So that's always going to be an issue, not just for starters, but for your bullpen. And especially when you're playing in a division with Tampa, with Boston, with New York, with Toronto, all teams that can hit the long ball. And it has been a little bit surprising. Like you said, the Orioles were able to score 6 runs without hitting home run. I feel like every time I've been on Birdland Tonight, I've talked about the fact that this offense was supposed to be the thing that kind of propelled the Orioles throughout this season. And it really hasn't been. And they get 6 runs tonight without a long ball. And it's just like, where is the real, where's this offense, especially in a home ballpark that is supposed to give up a lot of home runs and does to the opponents? Where is it for the Orioles? Where is it for the home team?
Right. I mean, right. Mancini got 1 hit. He got in 1 walk. Hayes got 1 hit. And then, but like the big bats, like Mountcastle, 1 walk tonight.
Yep, 2 strikeouts.
These are the guys that are supposed to be clearing those walls. Mm-hmm. And they're not. Michael Franco didn't get anything, right? Yeah, 2 strikeouts, 0.
2 strikeouts, 0 for 5.
These are the guys that were getting up in key parts of the game today and couldn't make anything happen. When you look at the guys that got the hits, it was Mullins, obviously. Stewart, which was nice to see him kind of get some bounce backs. And then Wilkerson that had a big night. Cisco even got a hit tonight. So it was just those big guys that you're counting on, the Hayes, Mancini, Franco, were not hitting the ball tonight.
Well, and that's what leads to a team, not only losing 8 of their last 10, but having to deal with, I think, the Matt Harvey conundrum, I guess, is how I'll phrase it. I mean, it's not even really a conundrum because, like we said, there's no real place for the Orioles to turn in terms of their rotation. But I think the expectations around Matt Harvey did get a little bit inflated toward the end of April. And I think he has done a really good job in his last 3 starts of just putting everybody back in check and remembering that he's Matt Harvey. Although the other thing I'll say about tonight, Ed Hickox was really, really bad behind the plate. And it just reaffirmed
very inconsistent,
extremely inconsistent, and on both sides, not just for Matt Harvey. He didn't have a lot of time to be bad for Matt Harvey. He wasn't in the game for that long, but truthfully, Ed Hickox, among the myriad of umpires that have reaffirmed my belief that we just need to go to an automatic strike zone, because it was really bad. The one key at bat in that was the DJ Stewart at bat in the 4th inning, where he should have been called out earlier in the at bat and then got called out on a worse pitch, which was puzzling, but it was bad all around.
Yeah, a high strike was called a ball, and then a pitch higher than that was called a strike.
Yeah,
to get him out, and that was
it was puzzling.
That's the most frustration I think I've seen on Stewart's as long as he's played. He threw the bat
Well, he
down.
left. I
Definitely was
believe he
angry.
left the bases loaded in that scenario. Is that
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yep, bases were loaded.
it was one of those opportunities where you thought,
That
and
was
then
that
the
fourth
Orioles,
inning.
yeah, and then the Orioles turned around and had 9, 10, 11 straight batters retired after that. So that did kind of, really take the wind out of their sails offensively. Was that moment? I'm not saying that the game would have gone differently. Obviously, it was a 7-run blowout, but those moments are kind of tough to take when you get an inconsistency in the strike zone and a young hitter that's up there trying to make something happen with the bases loaded. So
yeah. Now I will say this is the part of the schedule that I've been looking forward to for the past month, because the schedule is very heavy focused on Yankees Red Sox. Now we have this nice break that we don't have to deal with the Yankees Red Sox. And yeah, there's teams that are still better than us, like the Rays. But we don't have to deal with Yankees Red Sox. We get the Rays, we get the Nationals. I think we have the Twins coming up. Yeah. The Twins are worse. Orioles
the
fans,
Twins
we don't like to complain. The Twins are worse.
And if you haven't seen what's going on with the Twins and White Sox this week, that's something to look into, because that's Rocco Baldelli may be sitting a few games out in the near future for the Twins after his tirade.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, there are not a lot of worse teams than the Orioles,
and we get them coming up.
The Twins are certainly
the Twins are worse. The Tigers are worse. The Pirates are worse. The Nationals are worse right now.
Yeah, the Nationals are not good.
They're not good.
And
so
it'll be
we
good
like
to have a little Masson Cup action this weekend down in DC.
Right. Now, I'm not saying this to get excited because we're going to play some bad teams. I'm just saying we kind of put this as Oriole fans. We kind of always compare ourselves to the Yankees and the Red Sox because they're in our division, and you have to do that. Those are the teams we're going to have to beat when we're ready to win the division. But we have to also kind of put in perspective that we're not a horrible team. We're a rebuilding team with a plan. The farm system's clicking. It's working. And we've got one of the hardest schedules in baseball because we play Boston, Toronto, Tampa, and New York 19 times, and we don't get to face the Orioles.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I would also like to do a quick shout out to, we talked about the length of this game and kind of why it was so long.
Yep. This is what people use as an example for baseball games being too long.
Yeah, well, part of the reason for that was when Ryan Thompson came into the game for the Rays after the injury to to Reed. He, I think, threw 357 warm-up pitches. It was about that many. Yep. And on the Masson broadcast, Scott Garceau and Ben McDonald were doing their best to express their displeasure with that, but do it in a humorous way. And I appreciated that because it was entertaining to me.
Yeah, when he was doing warm-up pitches behind the mound, like I guess to stretch out his arm. But you're right. I'm pretty sure he threw more pitches tonight than Matt Harvey.
Yeah, he very well may have, and he only faced one batter, which is incredible. I had my buddy Jeff tweet me from the game, and he was glad to see it reaffirmed that it was so long because he was at the game and said it felt really long. So
there's no way I would have stayed at this game. I guess.
Well,
I guess
if you've got tickets, I don't know.
I guess the third inning excitement and the fourth inning excitement have kept making you feel like you were in it. And even in the ninth inning, getting men on base and scoring, I guess that would sucker me in. But wow.
I don't know, Josh. You can't miss Pat Valaika driving in a run with an RBI single in the ninth inning. I mean, that to me is the magic of Orioles baseball. One more shout out. Speaking of the magic of Orioles baseball, happy birthday to the man who for those of you watching us, to the man over my left shoulder, Brooks Robinson.
Yep.
Big birthday for the Orioles vacuum cleaner today.
Yes, the Orioles tried their best to give up 84 runs for Brooks today.
Exactly. They couldn't quite. But happy birthday to Brooks.
All right. I think that's all the positives from the game. And some negatives.
Yeah, well, and the negatives.
It's not the type of game that I come in angry about the way the Orioles played. It's just this is what we're going to get through this year.
No, it's impossible to be angry with this team doing what this team is going to do, pretty much performing to expectations. Do you like to see them losing 8 out of 10 games and losing games by 7 runs? And to open a division series at home midweek when there's, about 5,500 fans in the stands?
Right.
No, you don't like that, but that's what this team is. So you accept it, and we still know that every fifth day, or at least at this rate and pace where they're giving a little rest every sixth or seventh or eighth day, you get to watch John Means pitch, which is what we get to look forward to on Wednesday, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, if you're in Maryland, go buy tickets, go to these games, but know what you're expecting. You go in there to just enjoy Camden Yards. I went to 2 games this weekend. I went Friday night and Saturday night, the 2 losses this weekend. But it was just nice to be in Camden Yards. It was, maybe, I guess it was nice that it was a Saturday. I believe they were both sellouts of like the 10,000, but they were more than 50% Yankee fans, which was not great. But it was just nice to be in Camden Yards, to be around Oriole fans, to run into people that listen to Birdland Tonight and Section 336. And just hang out for the love of baseball. And I guess I said I wouldn't have stayed tonight. I probably wouldn't. I would have left early, but I would have at least enjoyed. It doesn't matter how ugly the game is. You still enjoy going there and catching a little bit of baseball. So tomorrow's the fun one with John Means.
And it likely won't be long until, with things opening back up and more people getting their vaccinations and capacity will be likely going a little bit higher in the near future. Perhaps even very much higher to like what could potentially be full capacity by the end of the season. Not that the Orioles are going to be putting full capacity in place, in any of their games other than perhaps the Yankee series in September. Yeah. So I'm coming out for a game in late June. I'll be in town for Father's Day weekend. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how many fans they're able to get in on a hot summer weekend in Baltimore, and it's not going to be Yankees or Red Sox. It's not going to be a big draw. I'll be interested to see what the Orioles can draw for a team like the Angels, who have Shohei Ohtani doing what he's doing right now. That'll be interesting as well. But yeah, to your point, like when John Means is pitching, get a ticket and go watch this guy, because not only is he going to be an all-star this year, he's probably going to be a top 5 Cy Young candidate. Maybe a top 3 Cy Young guy for this team right now, which is really cool. And those are the types of things that you can kind of hold on to in what is obviously been and going to be the rest of the season kind of tough from a wins and loss standpoint. You can hold on to the John Means of it all, which is kind of nice.
Now, I will say I'm a little concerned that the Orioles got a bunch of hits tonight, because they generally don't have back-to-back games that way. And I'm expecting John Means is going to pitch tomorrow, and it's going to be a 1-0 game. And hopefully the Orioles can pull that out, because it is John Means on the rubber.
Yeah, that would be the hope. Do we know who the Rays are throwing out there?
Yeah.
I haven't seen.
Yeah, it's this guy's really good. He's TBD.
Oh, TBD. Okay.
TBD. That's generally, he's also known as the Orioles' 4th and 5th starters.
They'll probably throw an opener out there or someone.
Well, here's the problem. Do you know who's starting for the Rays on Wednesday or Thursday?
It's probably TBD.
It's TBD as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So see, guys, the Orioles aren't the only team with a rotation that's screwed up.
No, but they at least have, the Rays at least have. I mean, this guy that pitched tonight, Patino, he's the guy they got in the Snell deal. He's supposed to be really good. I was impressed with his stuff early on, but the Orioles were obviously able to chase him after 3 1/3. So, the Rays always tend to do this though with the pitching. The turnover that they have and the use that they get out of their bullpen, they do a pretty good job with that. So, I'm sure TBD will perform just fine for the Rays, not only Wednesday, but the fact that they're going to turn around and throw him again on Thursday is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and exactly, and you know what, you got a good point with the Orioles found a way around that 3 1/3 innings, which is where your lineup flips. So it seemed like once they saw this guy one way through, they made some adjustments. So that's a positive takeaway.
No question.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us for Birdland Tonight. I'm assuming you're not watching this tonight because it's late, and instead you're enjoying this on your commute into work. So have a great day and enjoy John Means tonight. We'll catch you after tonight's hopefully win.